All right, welcome back, everybody, for our episode today of Pasadena Therapy. I'm joined, as always, by my health practice partner, Herman Ortiz. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, man. Pretty good. Pretty good week.
Yeah, you staying out of this freaking rain we got here?
Yeah. It's chillier than normal, man. I'm feeling a little bit of some cold weather lately. It's unusual for us, but yeah.
It is. It is unusual, and for us California people, man, well, first of all, we're probably thinking, where the hell was this rain when we really, really needed it? People in
You know,
Palisades probably agree, but
yeah.
yeah. No, I mean, it's just, I know something you and I, man, we were talking about before, and I think it's become kind of an issue with men in today's day and age is dating. Man, have you found like in some of your sessions that gets covered every now and then?
Yes, I'm surprised actually. I think the most successful relationships are online dating where people are finding partners online.
Yeah,
I have some clients that use the Hinge platform, I believe it's called, and
yeah, yeah.
they say they get some quality matches there that are they really connect and are able to find good partners, good people to kind of at least start a relationship.
Are those? Do you find that your male clients or female clients have more
I want
success?
to say male. I'm only having male clients mostly,
Okay.
so the males are the ones who bring it up. But obviously, there's a lot of females because they're always saying that they have plenty of options to choose from
Hmm.
from this dating source.
Yeah, I just find that online dating for men, like if you're one of those like top shelf men, right?
Hmm.
Like you're the top tier Russian standard platinum
Yeah.
vodka, not like the cheap vodka in a plastic bottle, men. And you show that, you're gonna get women that are gonna swipe. But I think sometimes men, you know how like back in the day, right? You want to pick up on a girl's number, you gotta look good, you gotta have some nice threads, you gotta have some game, and you won if you get her number by the end of the night.
Right.
Well, I think a lot of men, they don't take that approach now to online dating. I mean the bottom shelf men. They don't
Right.
present themselves very well. They use like really bad photography. They don't talk about themselves in a flattering way. And so women are going to be like very dismissive. But whereas some men, they let it speak for themselves. They got like the picture of themselves looking good. I think a group shot is important because I think women got to know that a man's got a good circle of friends that have a level of success, right? And then, it paints a story of that man's life. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. Like you said, high value men, top shelf men, as you mentioned. Yeah, that's what these guys are. The guys I'm working with are these high value men who have businesses. They have decent income. They can afford nice restaurants. They can, take a weekend trip to Vegas. They can go here, there, Mexico. They do different things. So these are guys that can really impress women. So I think that's why they have a lot of options on these sites because, like you said, they present well and they're able to show what they're about right away, and that gets them swipes and that gets them a lot of dates.
Yeah. I always tell dudes, I mean, and people who go in my practice or just people who ask me, they always know what I'm going to say. I got four qualities that you got to have in today's day and age as a modern man. If you want to really impress the ladies, you got to be a provider, you got to be a problem solver, you got to be a communicator, and you got to be good in bed, man. Those are the four things. Evolution backs me up on that, man. You look at some of these peer reviewed studies, what women want, it comes down to those types of things, man. And a lot of guys are either unable or unwilling to put in the work. They can decide which is which. Is it easy? No. It's hard for men to date. And I think that's why we want to talk about modern dating in this episode because, expectations of men are really, really hard. And that's just in getting the date. You
Right,
and I talked about like, man, we're just going to cover dating in this. We're not going to cover keeping the girl in the relationship.
right,
That's a
right.
whole different episode, man. That's another hour. Um, but yeah, man, what do you think? What do you think are some of the areas of difficulty if you're a man trying to date today?
I think the expectations that are set, I think social media in a way has created these false narratives and expectations Now every single woman want what they see
Yeah.
on their, on their accounts, whether, whatever social media account they have. I think they're they all want that, and they think they all deserve that, and they all should get that. And the reality is, not every guy is set, at this certain time, right? So I think that's where sometimes, men can have a difficult time if they're not at that top level yet. They're still growing, whether it's a business, whether it's a career, whether it's a job, and they're still not at that place where they can compete with higher tier men. I think that's a very challenging situation because, you have these girls who, look good and want the best things in their life. And if the guy can't provide that, they're not going to look his way, until he's ready and able to.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about that. And a couple things you said I want to touch on is you said about a guy has to compete, right? First of all, um, men need to be more competitive, dude. I'm seeing like less and less young people playing sports for a while. And as we know, sports, man, you keep score. There's a winner and there's a loser. That's how life goes. But that trains you for real life, man. There's none of this like everybody wins. That's not how life works. And I know it sounds harsh, but it only sounds harsh when you're losing. So
Mhm.
I think men have to have that competitive edge. And I want for men to be able to have this mentality of like when they say, well, I'm not successful. I want them to add the words right now to them because
Yeah.
then they have something to look forward to, something to
Yeah.
work for.
Yeah. And, the real world isn't like Hollywood movies where the underdog always wins. He gets the
No,
girl. He has no chance, but she ends up picking him
but
over,
you mean a 1 in a million chance?
Yeah, yeah, 1 in a million chance, right? But in Hollywood, it always happens that way, right?
You're
Like the
saying there's
underdog.
a you're saying there's a chance.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So there's always that, but in reality, it's not that easy for guys. If like I said, if they're not competitors, if they don't have an alpha male personality, if they're guys that really don't know or just experience, they get walked over, or don't, or women don't even look their way.
They say nice guys finish last. I would say nice guys are lucky to finish at all. Okay.
We've had this discussion, I think, in the past, right? Women have different expectations, right? Men have different expectations, but women want what they want, and sometimes men don't have that. Or what happens is they get stuck in a friend zone, right? Where I think that's sad. Sometimes I could hear guys say, "Hey, the girl has a fight with the boyfriend, and he's listening to her thinking he's got a chance one day, but in reality, and I know women get upset because they're like, but we're just friends. But there's these guys that get stuck there for a long time, and they got to realize that they need to walk out of those situations.
I'm glad you brought the friend zone thing because my analogy for that is it's race cars. Okay, a beautiful woman that all men want would be like a Ferrari or an Aston Martin, a beautiful car, right? And who has the most fun is the freaking driver of that car. You get to drive that sucker. You can take that however you want. You drive that thing around. You get to show it off. You're proud of it. But the guy in the friend zone. You know who he is in this story? The mechanic. When that car breaks down, he has to repair that car. Who gets to benefit?
Yeah.
Mechanic don't get to go race that car. He can't just drive it off the lot and be like, "Oh, it's my car." You
Mhm.
just fix that car for the driver. Now he is like, I'm not going to fix my own car. You're going to do it for me. And I get
Yeah.
to reap the benefits. I get to blast this thing down Button
Right.
Willow Speedway, Fontana Speedway.
Yeah.
And you're just watching from the stands crying, with your whole box of tissues. Don't enter the friend zone. There's no escape. This ain't like the ending of The Dark Knight Rises where you can just jump out of the freaking pit. You're in there forever, man. That's a life sentence. It's like, yeah, everybody wants to be Jim Halpert from The Office, where he's the one guy that escaped the friend zone. Yeah, that's a movie, and he's 6'2" and he's good looking. Okay, let's stop it now.
Sexiest man alive, apparently, in 2025, right?
Yeah, and so let's just pump the brakes there, man. Like I'm gonna invoke that Henry Cavill meme. The guy who plays Superman, where it's just he's all super handsome and he's just like, just ask her out. It works for me. Look, look, man. Um, people have to understand that um, dating, like you said, when we're kids, we watch those freaking romance movies and we think it's all like that. Like love is all you need. Yeah, that's great until like you go on vacation and then you stay at a resort and then they're like, yes, Mr. Ortiz, how will you be paying? I'll be paying with love. No. You pay with your MasterCard, your Visa, your American Express. That's how you pay. And you have to make the best of yourself so you can afford those things. That's just how it works. And I don't and none of us are saying this to be cruel. We're not saying this to like demean men who are like still on their purpose. That's a beautiful thing. We work with a lot of men that are still on the grind. Yeah,
It's a process. Yeah.
it is, man. And so like what do you think, man? Like what are some things, some strategies that you think men today would benefit from utilizing?
I think confidence, man. I think just being taking the role of a man, and and be a traditional man, because all these women out there, they'll say they want this or that or the other, but at the end of the day, when they get an old school man that knows how to treat them, take care of the bill, is able to provide for them and provide safety, um, I think that's what they're interested in the most, regardless of what they're asking. Once they get someone with a traditional role that sees, hey, this guy's got me, this guy knows what he's doing, this guy knows where he's going, and they don't want guys that don't have a plan. There's got to be a point in your life where you have to make a decision, like, where am I taking my life? Where is it going? Do I have a plan? Where's the end gonna be? But if you're kind of lost and you're in your mid 30s, it's a point. I think it's a time to reflect and see, what am I doing that I need to improve on. So, like I said, women like confident men, and sometimes men are not so confident anymore because of maybe it's not what's cool out there now to be a man or an old school man. I don't think that's kind of
Hmm.
the norm. We're seeing,
No.
this whole Disney fiasco of Snow White, and all that's happened there, right? So,
Right.
there's a stigma on just being a man right now, and I think young men are having to decide, which route am I going to take. I'm going to be the nice guy. I'm going to be the guy that um, society wants me to be now, or there's a little bit of confusion, I think, that
Yeah.
people are dealing with at this moment.
Something you mentioned there that I have to point out too is I think in the past, the type of man you're talking about would be a guy who was admired, not just by women, but by his peers, other men, or by boys who want to grow up to be like him. They see someone
Right,
who's, just gets shit done, very masculine energy. Again, I say, when we say masculine energy, we're not talking about like what women call toxic masculinity,
right,
because I don't believe in toxic masculinity. I believe they're toxic people. But like, I
right,
think the problem right now, man, is because you brought up social media earlier, but I would go a step further and just say, even in your friendship circle, I think some young boys are finding out real quick that when they achieve at a higher level, let's say we'll use a sports analogy. Let's say they play basketball for their high school team and they get a triple double.
hmm
Yeah, you're going to get your team that's happy for you and maybe whoever's in attendance. But other people are just going to be like, oh, well, who cares? I could do that too if I was 6'4". You know what I mean? But,
yeah,
but he gets hurt, then everyone feels sorry for him. Get well soon. Oh my God. They quickly find out that, damn, I get more likes and clicks when I complain about something.
right,
That's where I think young boys, and when they become men right now, they got to see which path they want to go. Do I want that validation, but like self validation where I achieve and I compete? And I
mhm,
may not get the accolades from others out there, but I feel proud? Or do I want to be like, I'm going to go for the low hanging fruit. I'm going to be like, I'm so sad. I can't do this. Woe is me. And then here comes the sympathy, not empathy. Empathy is a good thing. It's the
right,
sympathy, and I think a lot of young men are going that route. They're just being weaker and they're giving into this, like, I don't want to say toxic femininity, but kinda, because they're like male feminists, where I don't think they really believe in feminist ideals. They're just projecting it to be like, I want to get in good with these vulnerable women and I want them to feel sorry for me and then maybe I can take them to bed,
Right,
which they just end up in the friend zone.
right.
Is they're not sincere. You know, if you're gonna be it, be it. Don't pretend to be something. Don't act weak and ride on those the sympathy of others.
Yeah, you're right. There's masculinity is, I think, under attack in a way.
Hmm.
But like not all masculinity is bad, but in this, like I said, this current age, there's a lot of disconnect, I think, even between the sexes, males, females, like, and there's the new roles. I mean, I think for me, we're about the same age. I think in my generation is like, we got to pay the bill, we got to take care of this. We like, it's unwritten rules, right? I already know that that's what a guy has to do, but the new generation don't see it that way. It's like, they have 50-50, or that, sometimes the females will offer, they'll pay. So it's different, right? So I think there's a lot of testing out going, but they're courting them back and forth, like what can we do, what we can't do. And so there's challenges. There's a lot of challenges, right?
You're, yeah, you you hit on something right there. I'll tell you what, man. Something I do, and it's gotten an approval rating of 100% is look, when I started dating a woman, last several years, I just make it real clear from day one. I'm like, don't ever pull out your wallet around me. Don't do any of that. I pick up the tab. You want to do something nice for me? You want to buy me something? Wait for Christmas or my birthday. That's
Yeah.
it. You know, you eat, have a good time. Don't bitch too much if you don't like the food. Just save that for later. Don't embarrass me in public. But like, that's my role. Don't insult me by trying to pay for me. I'll happily take that on. You know how many women gave me grief about that? Zero. Okay, zero. No matter how staunch a feminist, you offer to pick up the tab. Yeah, they ain't gonna say no.
I think, like I said, I think for men our age, it's kind of been a given, and it's just how things, have been had gone for many years. And so I think women still appreciate that. They still appreciate, men to pick up tabs, men to do certain things that I think are not being done as much because of, the change in culture, the change in dating relationships, so yeah, it's a challenge right now. And but I think confidence overall is the number one. Like,
Yeah,
women can spot a confident man from a mile away.
and the opposite's true. They can spot a guy who's acting confident, but he's not.
Yeah, yeah, and you'll see that a lot at the bars. I think
Yeah, yeah.
and I'm gonna say this again. That's not a good place to meet someone if you're really trying to date, and like, guys are expecting to go to a bar and date. That's probably not the best place. But yeah, I think I've seen that a lot. When you go out and eat or have drinks, I think you always see that guy in every single bar that
Well,
exists. It's all
you see that guy, or you know what? Hey, you want a funny experiment? Go to a Chili's when it's like last call. See what caliber of women are sitting there at the bar. All
right.
right, yeah, yeah. Then you got to rethink your life choices real quick on that one. But what do you think, man? What are some ways do you think men today that who are like still on that journey? They haven't quite hit all of their success points yet, but what can they do to be more confident?
I think it's continue what they're doing and focus on whatever it is they're headed to, whether it's a career, whether it's a business, whether it's a job, whatever it is. I think they have to make that their focal point before they start trying to be who they're not. I
Yeah.
think once you're that person, and work on you, just because, we hear this towards women all the time. Women, work on yourself, make sure you're this, you're that. And we don't hear that for men anymore.
Mm-mm.
Like my advice be like, dude, work on yourself, get yourself where you need to be in a place where, you're going to have options, where you're going to put yourself where you're going to decide which side you want to go, here, there, or So definitely, I would say work on yourself and keep keep working on who you want to become.
Yeah. No, you bring up a good point because it's like if it's like it's funny because if a dude asked you, "Oh, how can I meet more women?" It's like what I hear you saying is telling them back, work on you first. So instead of chasing women, fix what's going on in your life, make yourself into the best prime version. It seems like that's what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. I had a client, last year or so, where he was really low on energy, and he didn't really know how to talk to him, and he was really confused. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, what do you think?" I said, "Stop trying to hit on them." I said, "Don't do that. Don't go after them since you see them because I think you scare them off, or you're coming to like have a conversation, talk
Mhm.
about the weather. I don't know what's going on in pot, whatever. Talk about something that you can have a conversation. If that grows, then you could see where that goes. But stop from the get go without even knowing them, asking them, "Hey, I like you. Let's go out." Like just a hello, hey. See if you can have a 5 minute conversation with that person before you choose to go out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. Before I kind of run down my little quick list, you got any other quick suggestions that male listeners can take?
As far as
Just meeting
suggest
women. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're everywhere, man. They're at the grocery store, they're at Starbucks, they're at the parking lots. I mean, laundry. Like, it's about who you're chasing, though, because sometimes, and this happens to most young guys, is they want that woman that's just extravagant. They want that woman that just shines. They want that shiny new toy. And I think, and then they forget about everyone else, all the other women that are next to her. So I think it's looking, paying attention to exactly what is it that you want and what's achievable, what's not, and don't forget about the other women that are out there, not just that one good looking that everybody else. Then there's 1,000 guys behind her. I mean, I think it's play the market, explore, see there's more. And like I said, if knowing yourself what you want, and like I said, not just what your eyes are telling you, but what your mind. Can you have a conversation? Can you have coffee? Can you guys just go out and discuss something without any sexual activities? Can that happen? So, and like I said, there's plenty of women and there's out there that want are looking for guys that are going to take care of them, are going to have a good relationship, that are caring. So there's plenty of women. And like I said, just don't, if there's someone you really like and there's 20 guys behind her, it's going to be a challenge, man. You, you got to beat all those guys, to her heart. And that's can be challenging.
Man, when the way you describe it like that, we're like, yeah, there's like a beautiful girl who's got like a bunch of suitors. Man, at that point, you're like that. You're like the dude at the what do you call it? The butcher where you got to grab a number, and
Yeah.
there's like 15 customers ahead of you,
Hmm.
all to
Yeah.
get to that delicious ribeye.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is, and
Yeah.
you got to be like, I'm the best one, right?
Hmm.
And so that
Right.
kind of sucks. And plus, another thing, speaking of the whole numbers deal, is and I got to tell this to dudes, and it's heartbreaking for a lot of them. It's you're not the only guy in her DMs. Let's be crystal clear about that. This isn't dating like the old days where it's hard to meet people, right? It's easy. It's remarkably easy to meet
Yeah.
people. So if you're one of those fellas that's like, oh man, like we get along so well, and like it's like on Fridays we always text, but then on the weekend I can't get a hold of her. She never contacts me back.
Yeah.
It's like you know why, you just don't
Right.
want to accept it, right?
Right. Right.
It's like when you go to your parking spot, your car's not there. You're like, oh, I must have parked somewhere else.
Mhm.
That's shock. Give it time. Your knees will get weak. Then you'll realize you got carjacked. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the
Yeah.
same thing. Okay, it ain't in the it is not in the other parking lot. It's where you parked it. Someone stole it. That's how it is. You got to
Right.
be okay with it.
Yeah, and not being afraid, like I said, because there's w- gr- becoming a man is a process as far as how you become confident, right? How you become that top guy at work, that top guy at business, the top employee, and it's a process.
Yeah,
So understanding, hey, where are you at, and what is it that you're willing to give, and what do you have to offer? Keeping I think keeping all that in mind. before you go on the chase, you know, like
Yeah.
you got to look at yourself and what do you have to offer as well, because and it's fair game out there, and there's probably other guys that, and vice versa with women. There's always someone else that is doing better than you are. That's just how it is.
Yeah. It goes back to what you said earlier. You just got to work on yourself and basically be the best available you as possible when you make a move on somebody, right?
Okay.
I got a couple suggestions, and when we started this episode, I was like, I'm going to try to think of some stuff that I haven't said already in past episodes. And so, like, okay, I got 3 things I would suggest for dudes. I'm going to keep it really simple. One is fix your own room before you invite someone into it. Okay. If your bedroom is all messy with socks all over the place, why would you invite a woman there? Your bed isn't even done up. It's make sure you've got a presentable room. And I'm saying that metaphorically. I mean, yeah, you got to have a clean room, but like clean up your life. Okay. When you're at your lowest point is not the time to go hunting at the bar for some game. That's not how it works. You got to be your best available self at the time. And so, yeah, fix your room, get your affairs in order. Look good, act good. Do whatever you can to do what you're saying about getting confidence, right?
Right.
Build that confidence so that the you that you project out there to the dating universe is very presentable, and people are like, I want to go back to that guy's room. Okay, again, take that how you will. The next one is, man, stop performing. Okay, just don't perform. Be genuine. Okay, like, I know sometimes we joke around about like, when someone says I'm just being myself, and we're just like, oh,
Mhm.
the genuine, your genuine self is horrible. It's abysmal. Work on it. Okay, be interesting, but be genuine. Don't channel someone else. That's why I find sometimes like these dudes who like they're definitely a work in progress, but let's say they're not particularly handsome. They don't have a good career, but they watch a lot of Andrew Tate videos. They try to be like him. Now, I got nothing against Tate except for some of the crazy stuff he says, but like otherwise, tall, good-looking guy, successful. I don't count on another man's money. Let him do what he wants, But these guys I'm talking about, they're not him, but they try to be him. They repeat his lines. They try to act like they're 6'4" like him, but they're like 5'1".
Yeah.
You're not a giant. You're not him. Be the best you and be genuine, because when you're not driving a Bugatti but you try to act like you're driving a Bugatti, nobody likes you. Okay, so stop performing.
Right. And I think part of that is being honest, right? Like if you know a girl likes to dance and you don't like to dance, then why? Why? You're gonna make a fool out of yourself. You're gonna
Yeah,
go somewhere and you're gonna be sitting down, I think honesty can be very helpful too.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that kind of goes into my next thing about reframing, because like you're right, like, because people who know me know like Bryan don't sing and he don't dance, but he can make romance. I don't do that, but I don't try to hide it. I tell
Right.
people it's not that I can't dance. Well, I know it is, but I just also won't dance. I just don't do that. I don't do. I go to a club. I'm the guy, sipping his, his Cuba Libre,
Mm.
and talking to people. I don't dance. That's not what I do. But I don't hide behind that. I don't try to be like, oh man, I'm deficient. But like,
Right.
you go dance. You can't do what I do, but I don't
Yeah.
hold you to that standard. You know what I
Right.
mean? So yeah, I mean, some people, they judge themselves so harshly, like, oh man, she's really into this, and all those guys, they do that. Yeah, but they don't do what you do. As
Right.
long as you've got something of some value, So like, my third thing that I would tell people is like, reframe your thinking. A lot of men say, oh, I have a problem meeting women. No, knucklehead, you don't have a problem meeting women. You have a problem with rejection. That's your problem. Okay. Meeting women is not as hard as people think. It's the rejection part. Okay. And here's the thing. Here's a universal truth. No matter how many years you've got under your belt, rejection hurts. You know what the key is? The key is not minding that it hurts. Okay. Go out there, talk to women. And if you're like not into like befriending them, whatever, that's okay. You're honest with yourself. You just want to meet them because you want to date them. It's simple. Just walk up to them. Hey, how you doing? You're cute. My name is Bryan. What's your name? And if they're like, get away from me, creep, which they might, because Who isn't offended by everything these days? But
Right.
if you run into someone like that, you're saving yourself the trouble. Do you really want a girl that's offended by everything? Right? You're just gonna be like, oh, I'm just hanging out with the boys. So it's like, oh, you don't like having women there too? Do you want to date someone like that? They're always gonna like fight you on stuff. So you're doing a litmus test right there. How agreeable is she? You know, how open is she? Okay. And she
Yeah.
might say no, but you have to be okay with that.
Yeah. Good point. How agreeable is she, right? And that's more of a how do you guys interact, compromise, right? Like that's important,
Yeah, yeah.
because yeah, if are you gonna just say, yes, yes, ma'am, yes? Are you gonna be a yes guy? I think that that has to be also to be addressed because if you're gonna be that guy, fine, but there's gonna be a fine line to pay because from all the yeses, when you give a no here and there, it's gonna be bad for you.
And you know what? I will say this to reframe it too. I'm not even going to be the guy that says being that yes man is a bad thing. It's only a bad thing if you're a paper alpha. You're a paper tiger. You're all about this alpha energy, but you're really a beta. If you're a beta, but you own it, right? You've got your freaking beta badge on and everything like that. It's okay because that's what makes you happy. Okay. If you're happy being number two, be happy being number two, right? That's okay. It's only bad when you think you're the number one option. When you think like you're like the starter, but you're really the bench warmer, that's when it's bad. Okay. Like, yeah, you're not Lamar Jackson, you're not Pat Mahomes, but you're the backup. You gotta be okay with being the backup.
Yeah,
See?
yeah, and I think what we're saying is not a trying to attack men. It's
No.
more to get to realize and open their eyes sometimes of seeing what the world is like because sometimes it's good to see it through someone else's lens because sometimes maybe you grew up in a certain way and you see life in a certain lens and sometimes it's hard when I've had guys in my sessions where I've had to be the lens, and kind of pretty much sum up everything they've told me and, rephrase it for them and
Mm-hmm.
put it in order. And then it's like an awakening for them, right? So
Yeah.
it's important sometimes because I think people do things sometimes without realizing it, or they're just creatures of habit. This is just how they do things, and they don't change their ways or how
No.
they go.
And you know what? And again, people got to be honest with themselves because if I'm going to sit here and say all those men that exhibit beta qualities, just to tell them to just own it, because I think, yeah, there's nothing like disingenuine about an alpha being an alpha and a beta being a beta. But if you're a beta that acts alpha, it doesn't work, right? But but if you've got certain areas you want to work on, that's different. That's totally different, right? But things you're talking about, you kind of when you recap what they're telling you and they come to this epiphany, then they got a decision to make, right? They might just be happy with who they are, or they might be like, God, you're right, man. I'm too short sighted. I got to work on myself.
Right.
I'm a long term projection, not a short term gain. And some guys have trouble with that, man.
Yeah, yeah. And as we mentioned, I think we both agree on confidence, right? And confidence doesn't grow overnight. It's a comment.
It's earned.
It's earned. And how do you earn those? Little wins, big wins, win, and acknowledging that because I think a lot of people don't acknowledge when they've won at something, when they've done something great, and they just keep going and going, and they don't stop and see like, man, if I see, I graduated from high school, I went to college, I was straight A, now I got this job, you know what I mean? They don't take a step back and look at all their accomplishments. They might focus on something they didn't accomplish. So it's
Yeah.
important to sometimes summarize that up and be like, man, you guys have good qualities. Just because maybe you didn't make it on this day or this happened doesn't mean that you're a failure or you're a loser. It's just, hey, we all take losses, man. And I think that's part of if we're going to talk about wins, we got to understand that losses are going to come as well. So, but not staying lost is the key.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think if you adopt a competitive mindset from the start, then you know how to deal with losses. You know that no team is perfect. They don't all have a perfect season. You're gonna
Right.
lose from time to time. But the question is, can you get up and actually learn what you did wrong so that you don't lose to that same team again?
Right.
That's the
Right.
challenge. That's the challenge. And unfortunately, right now, you got a generation of men that have so many solutions at their disposal. Let's take therapy. You can meet through telehealth. You can meet in person. You can do coaching. You can, or even if you can't afford it, let's be real. There are a lot of good YouTube channels. I mean,
Mhm.
especially ours. But there are
True.
a lot of things they can watch for self help, right? You know, little 5 minute videos that can really be helpful, man. And I mean, there's a lot of shitty ones too. Don't get me wrong. But if you
Mhm.
can filter through and get to the good ones, that might actually really help you. I've seen plenty of videos back in the day and to even nowadays that are really, really informative, man. And they got good content to them. And I make the decision whether it's useful or not. And then I implement it in my own life.
Right.
But yet, despite all those solutions, there's always going to be a man that you give them a solution, they give you 20 problems, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's always the case, and it's takes a lot of work, and like I said, it takes it. There's probably some past trauma, something there that maybe they haven't gotten over, and maybe they need to have a professional discussion with someone like you and I, or thousands of other therapists that exist. But yeah, sometimes people get stuck and they might not even know why. So sometimes having conversations, looking into yourself, like you said, educating yourself, going through self-help videos, reading articles, reading books is helpful to find yourself and see what it is that you want. How do you want to be successful in dating and in life in general?
Yeah, man. It's just finding out what fulfills you too, because you're in trouble if someone asks you, well, what fulfills you and what makes you happy? And they just say, finding the right woman. Now you're saying something you haven't done yet, right? It's like, really? That's the only thing? Did you ever feel good because you accomplished something? Let's say you went to college, you graduated like magna cum laude. Weren't you happy with that accomplishment? Weren't you happy when you won state championship in football or something like that? Didn't that make you happy? That sense of that thrilling sense of victory, right? Or like when you got like an employee of the month or something. Didn't that make you happy?
Right,
All those can't be taken from you. A woman can be taken from you. Okay.
right,
And I think brings you back to the thing you said about confidence, because it's earned. You got to achieve it. And men have to be willing to achieve. Make no mistake about it. You have to achieve. You got to compete. You got to achieve, or else you're gonna be left in the dust, man. Bunch of losers at a bar. Dating. It's a hard racket.
having a pity drink. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And taking advantage of the tools, right? I started off with online dating and that stuff. Like that wasn't available back in our day. Like, we didn't have even cell phones. So,
Uh,
it was like you said, if you got that number, you had it made. That was like getting 50 Instagrams, in one day, that one out of 50, But back then it was like you got a number, you were a success that day, man. So
yeah.
and now online people are, you can see other women from other states, from other cities. It's just you know, it just feels like the game is much bigger and there's more players out there. And then, so you shouldn't be having too much trouble finding, a date. Like you said, keeping them is another conversation we'll have, but at least starting off with a date, it shouldn't be that challenging, because I hear that a lot of, from a few female clients that I have. They say it's very challenging. There's really not, nothing good out there. But then again, I challenge them saying like, where have you been looking? What are the type you're choosing? So, when people say that, you have to kind of ask more questions because
Hmm.
on both sexes, male, female, right? So, um, because where are they dating these people? If you keep finding a loser, whether it's a male or female, like if you keep finding the same person and you keep maybe it's time for you to take a step back and look at what changes need to happen. So, because yeah, the playing field is pretty big out there, and you can go internationally, you can go locally, you can, it's big, man. It's a bunch of free agents out there.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And don't overpay for one that it's not gonna give you a good return. And I think one problem some dudes do as well, and it's definitely something women do, but we're just focusing on men right now. But like, is they ignore red flags early because one, they're desperate because maybe they think this is the only girl that's gonna return my calls or whatever. But red flags are red flags, and they're there for a reason. They're evolution's way of warning you: danger ahead, danger ahead. But nope, some men soldier through it, and they think either the red flags aren't there, or that somehow like they'll fix her. Like those memes you've seen of like what is it, like those mug shots of like really beautiful women, and it's always those guys that are like, I'll fix her. It's like that. Guys, even if you're a professional in psychology, like we are, for example, okay, you know, we got to tell you guys something. Me and Herman might be licensed clinicians, but we're not licensed clinicians 24 hours a day. Okay. We don't want to work all the time. Okay. We don't want to just be like, oh, look, my partner here is a constant work in progress.
Yeah.
And it's like you gave an analogy of like someone in therapy for like almost 10 years. And it's like, God, really? It's like, damn. So it's either you got problems that don't change, or they're just taking your money. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's like that. If you're in a relationship with someone and you're just like, dude, there's way more bad than good. I have more negative memories than good memories. You got to reevaluate your own standards, and you got to ask yourself, am I the problem? Actually, because I keep attracting these red flags. Okay. But I don't really get any happiness. I'm always putting out fires. Right. And then I find breakup. I go date again. I'm back in the dating pool. What do? I find her clone, like her 2.0, right?
Mm.
And it's just back to what it was. And it's like, dudes, if you're okay with that, okay, and you're like a masochist, okay, all right. If that's how you get your rocks off, you gotta constantly fix women with trauma in their life, okay. But if you're a man who's just like, I just want to meet like a sweet girl, you're not gonna meet her like going to women's prisons and all that, man. Go where you think the women you want are actually present. Again, that's what we had to do back in the day. You go to a bookstore, you mean good chance it's gonna be a girl that's got some brains on her. Okay, you go to a bar, like I said, like close to closing time at a Chili's, probably gonna find the woman that's divorced 3 times and way past her prime. That's just how it goes.
Yeah. And don't complain later that she drinks or he drinks too much, and like, where'd you guys meet again? Like at a bar?
Because
Yeah.
you know what, I'm gonna give it a real world. I'm gonna give a real world example, and I know people are gonna hate me, but don't worry, I'm saying this, not you, so they'll cancel me. No, actually, no, they won't. Maybe 4 years from now they will. It's like Elon Musk. So many people hate him right now, but the same people who hate him right now loved him 4 years ago. He was their guy. He was the face of green energy. He was the entrepreneur. He was a successful African American man. He was their dude. He had, he has he's been open about his mental health, right? He's on the spectrum, so he was a hero for the people that want to help people on the spectrum. But he had certain personality quirks that guys like me are like, yeah, that's not too cool. But he's the same guy. He's not different. It's just that you wanted to believe the illusion so bad. You fell in love with the illusion, not the reality. You wanted him to be so great. You put all those responsibilities on him. It's like when you date like someone that's dumb, but they're so attractive. And so they're just like, I don't know, Herman, she's not dumb. She's just misunderstood. That's what people are doing now. And they're not taking responsibility for their bad judgment. He's the same guy. He made the same cars that you're driving now. You loved it then, you hate it now. So men and women, when you go after a partner and you forget, or you don't forget, but you ignore red flags because you're just so enamored with the illusion, do not say you weren't warned. Because these two guys right here try to warn you right now. Okay. And so that's something I'll say about the red flag issue.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned this a lot when you said it's like meeting your favorite celebrity, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't get disappointed, because of their personality issues or this or that. It's because what we see on TV is glamour and certain traits that we like, and we get attracted to that, and then you meet them in a real person with, oh, he was a jerk, or she was this, she was into, so it's always like that. You got to pay attention that there's something more to just the looks, to just the smile, to just the intimate sessions. There's more. There's that personality. There's those red flags that are there for a reason.
Yeah, who would have thought that someone who plays somebody else is not that person in real life?
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. And so
Yeah, people want to hold them to whatever the
exactly,
movie or
right?
show, right? And they think that's who they're gonna meet.
Exactly, man. And it's just again, fall in love with the fantasy, not the reality, and that's what happens, man. And so yeah, people, man, they gotta and don't get me wrong, the internet, we have to say it for what it is. Social media, internet, it makes people falsify things very, very easily. Okay. You could easily make yourself out to be richer than you are. Well, and thanks to filters, better looking than you are. Women, I'm looking in your direction with your filters. Um, and yeah, that could be misleading and it could set people up for disappointment for sure. But as long as people keep doing it, it's going to keep going.
Yeah, I think I've heard plenty of news stories on that. When they finally meet, people are angry, upset because they see the real person, and it's like, yeah, it's so with caution, right? I think everything has to be with caution. You
Yeah.
know,
I
uh,
mean,
but
like
yeah,
women will do the filters to hide their real appearance. And then men will typically lie about their height a lot.
high money,
Yeah. Yeah.
money,
Uh, yeah, see, the thing is, I'll say this: like, with the money thing, I got to give some women credit, although some women are really bad at this. Like, generally, it's not hard to see the guys that really have disposable income. It's not just what they have; it's how they carry themselves, right? And some guys, like, you and I, man, we got our start working with young teen boys and stuff, and so I remember something I used to tell them when back in the day, we'd take them to their prom, right? And the agency would pay for their formal attire. But for a lot of them, that was their first time wearing nice clothes. But I would always tell them the second you put that stuff on, the tie comes on, pretend you're not wearing it. Stop adjusting it. Stop looking at the labels. Pretend you've done it before. You don't have to do it. It's like you score a touchdown. Don't do a touchdown celebration every time. Act like you've been there. Resist the urge, because every other guy's feeling himself, and they're gonna be looking at themselves like they're all fancy stuff. But men who wear suits all the time, it's just another article of clothing. They stop looking at themselves. They don't post a selfie with a motivational freaking quote every time they wear a suit. You know,
right?
so stop it. That's why I tell people: look the part, man. Just look the part, be the part. But some people, they got to fake it, man. And I'll say this: one last thing about the filter thing is the real tragedy is some women I know are just that I've seen in person that I'm real fond of, and we get along really well. They'll use filters, and in the back of my head, I'm like, why? You are already so beautiful, okay? Why do you need it? Why do you feel the need to do that? And I realize maybe they feel it's competition, and they got to compete with other beautiful women. But it's so weird to me because I'll be like, I've seen you in person, and you are a knockout. You're great even without makeup sometimes. But there's this prevailing idea that they got to be even more beautiful, right? And then of course there's the horror stories where they're like unrecognizable without the makeup and the filters. And
Right.
then oh man, that's something else entirely.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, I think confidence is key. I think that if anything we've been talking about throughout the night has been confidence, and that's something that you have to work for. And it's not gonna just come overnight, and you're gonna it, count your wins. Pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to your life. Pay attention to you know how things are going, and it'll help you. You know understand yourself better when you know that you're not losing, that you're pretty much winning a lot, and you focus sometimes too much on that loss or a few of the losses that you have. So
Yeah. Yeah, and it goes back to my third thing I said about just reframing your problems. But it's like For example, if you're someone who's I don't know, like it's a Friday night and everyone's out and about and you're too broke because you just don't make enough or whatever. Well, reframe that as an opportunity, man. Instead of sitting at home moping about it and watching Netflix about just God knows what, go work on something you mentioned earlier. Make something of yourself.
Yeah.
Find a hobby, find something that'll make you money, find a side hustle. Because let me tell you, no guy ever got looked down on for having an identity separate from work, separate from his partner, separate from his friends. I mean, it could be something as simple as I know something you and I talked about before was like a vending machine business. Like you
Mhm.
have a vending machine at a fire station. I don't know. Someone's always going to buy those damn potato chips and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But that's something. It's something that you've done. Maybe it's artwork. Maybe it's a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Something that you're passionate about. Again, not performative, genuine. Something you're really into, but own it. Own it. Don't be like, oh yeah, I have this YouTube channel nobody watches. Don't do that. The world is gonna beat you up already. Don't beat yourself up. Okay? Don't do that. Reframe your challenges in life as opportunities to get better. Man, and when you start doing that, you become a dangerous animal right there.
Yeah. And that, what you mentioned, rejection, right? It's how you grow from that, understand it, and you're gonna be okay. But rejection happens to majority of men, if not
Hmm.
all.
Yeah,
Um, Women too. Like, there's always someone that's gonna say no to you. That's just how it is. So it's how you're gonna deal with that and how you're gonna move forward.
yeah. And just again, just to remind people, like every time you're out there thinking, like, well, I don't have what that guy's got, I don't have what that guy's got. The reality is there might be someone else that's looking at you and it's like, damn, I wish I had like that guy's drive, or I wish I had that guy's, skill at something, man. And that's how you gotta start thinking about it. You gotta start thinking like, I'm pretty good at this whole, let's say you're an engineer. I'm pretty good at this engineering thing. I'm pretty good at solving problems, right? Problem solving is, again, for me, my four things that men need. That's rule number two. You can't be someone who causes problems, man. Don't be a rule two violator. You got to solve problems. So be proud of the things you're good at, and okay, some of those things may not be universally like loved, but let's say you're a dude who's like in his 30s and let's say you play more video games than normal people and that takes up a lot of your life. Okay, if that's really what you love though, then at least find people who love that too. Don't try to impress the career woman who's like achieved her whole life. That probably ain't gonna work unless she's a professional video gamer, right? But you got to know where your hunting grounds are, so to speak. You can't, like, a vegan doesn't go on safari. Okay, it doesn't work that way. So if you're gonna be someone who's a gamer or someone who's into like cosplay or something like that, better be looking in you better be going to the right rooms, right? You better be like in the right hunting grounds, or else you're going to be always met with disappointment and rejection. And like we're trying to say, rejection happens all the time, but you can control your level of rejection by playing the odds. So go where the women you want to meet tend to hang out, but be smart about it in the sense that don't set yourself up for failure, right? And so, yeah, just find those groups, and if you're really passionate about it, yeah, go for it, right? But you got to own it and be realistic about it.
Okay. Exactly. Well said. Well said.
Yeah, man. So, yeah, I hope a lot of what we talked about today helps some dudes. I mean, I try to think of some new stuff for this time, that stuff I haven't already talked
Mm.
about, but like, guys, I'll reiterate what I said. Fix your room, man, before you invite someone in it. Stop performing, be genuine, and just reframe things, right? Like, I'm telling you guys, you don't have a meeting women problem. You have a dealing with rejection problem. And it's just, and I mean, what you said about confidence was dead on, man. You got to earn that.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
maybe like, yeah, for a future one, we could talk about like retention, retaining.
Yeah.
You get the
Yeah.
dream girl, you got to hold on to her because you got a lot of hungry wolves out there, man. You got a lot of vultures circling, circling there. So that's another story for another day, man. So
Retention takes more work.
it does, because any employer knows getting employees in is easy. Holding the good employees, that's the difficult part. So, all right, guys, if you got comments, questions, suggestions for future topics, let us know. If you want to reach us, we will leave the links down below. And again, we're available, me and Herman, through telehealth. We got our office in Pasadena. And, just check back for the podcast when we start doing them. It's like pretty much every few weeks. So I'll see you guys. See you later, man.
Right,